welcome to another week of our virtual interview series. We are so excited to bring you a guest from the sports world today. We are so excited to have with us Michael. Thank you, Michael, for being with us.
Of course.
Yeah. So could you take just a few minutes and tell us who you are, what you do, and where you're from?
Sure. Hi, everybody. I'm Michael Schauer. I'm currently the sous chef for the Boston Red Sox and also a cook for the New England Patriots during the off season for baseball. I currently live over in Bridgewater area. I'm originally from Western Mass, South Hadley area, kind of grew up there and then moved around a little bit and then ended up in Boston now.
I'm so excited that you're here with us today because you are the first chef that we've had on our interview series. So would you mind taking us through what your day-to-day activities look like? What does a normal day look like for you?
Sure. So pretty much any game day, depending on if it's an early one or late one, I usually get into the park around 10 o'clock, maybe 9:30, and pretty much just start cooking, whether it's something for later on during the post game or something for the next day, try to just stay ahead. But pretty much we get in, we receive any orders that we get on that day, and then we do a welcome meal for the players and staff and any medical team or anybody else that kind of comes through the clubhouse. We'll serve that. And then about 2 hours later, we'll serve a pregame meal. And then after that, we'll keep prepping into the game. And then we'll have a postgame meal. So we pretty much cook for about 60 to 70 people 3 times a day.
That is so awesome. It sounds like such a fun job. Always on your toes, doing something new every day. So I'm sure you didn't start out at the top, right? You didn't start out cooking for the Red Sox. So could you take us what your journey has been from high school to where you are tonight? How did you get there?
Yeah. So during high school, I actually ended up going to a trade school as well. So I did kind of dual enrollment. And at the trade school, I learned a bunch of different stuff. But one of the main classes I really stuck with was culinary. So it started really, really young for me, besides like doing the typical like peeling potatoes with mom and dad and stuff like that. My chef there at the C-Tech was just awesome. He really made me fall in love with cooking. So I think that was like a quick mentor for me and like kind of showed me how cooking can be like really fun rather than seeing what you see on TV with like Hell's Kitchen and all those kind of shows where it like shows like some craziness to it. But it was a cool teacher, cool program that they ran there. From there, I went on to a community college for a year where they had culinary. So I ended up doing another year there, transferred to Johnson & Wales in Providence. Pretty much started off with the idea of opening up a restaurant, retiring into it and all that kind of stuff to it. But then the girlfriend at the time showed me the nutrition program. So it kind of like fell in hand with like my love for sports, and then like learning more about nutrition just really made sense for me. From there, I did my internship with the Atlanta Braves in 2015. So I had to move down to Florida for spring training, did pretty much the same exact stuff that I do now. But then moved back to Atlanta, finished that baseball season, came back up and graduated, and then moved out to Arizona to work for the Chicago Cubs in 2016, just because of connections that I made through Atlanta. From there, we won the World Series that year, so that was insane to be a part of. And then pretty much came back home on this cool job where I was a private chef for this masonry company down in Florida. So I kind of flew down there, spent 2 to 3 weeks just cooking for them, and then came back and then was able to get the job with the Red Sox in 2017. And I've been with them for 5 years now. We won the World Series in 2018, which was insane. And then luckily this past off season, I made more connections, obviously the last couple of years, and was able to get my foot in the door with the Patriots and was able to cook for the 2020 season pretty much after or right before Thanksgiving to the end of it.
I mean, first of all, I can't imagine being with a team winning the World Series. I'm sure that was just an insane experience. Yeah. But I'm so glad that you mentioned connections. I think that's something that many students don't realize how important building relationships and making connections really is to the success of your future. So I'm glad you mentioned that. That's a great point.
Yeah, and like luckily my graduating class with Johnson and Wales, about 5 or 6 of my close friends are head chefs, if not higher up, like nutritionists, if not dietitians for sports teams. So it's been insane to see those people grow as well, but also be able to use them as a huge connection, be able to talk to each other and stuff like that. Like my buddy is the head chef and nutritionist for the Rockies, and he was asking a bunch of all of us to come out to Colorado for the All-Star game to have like an All-Star team of chefs cooking for the All-Star players. So it was like just crazy cool little stuff that happens, and like you make those little connections in college or before, and it just really pays out in the end.
So I'm sure your journey hasn't been smooth sailing. I mean, usually it's not for anybody. And so I can imagine you faced some obstacles along the way. Could you share with students how you overcame those obstacles and maybe some advice for students that face obstacles in their own future?
Yeah, so I remember in Atlanta, my head chef there was a really good guy. But we didn't mesh right away really well. I was kind of like focused on the studies, and I was 21, but I didn't really want to go out and drink and stuff like that. I would just thought of it as such more of an internship rather than like enjoy the moment, enjoy the surroundings and stuff like that. I took it way too serious. So me and him kind of head-butted a couple times here and there. And I remember one night he came home at like 4 a.m. and I was sleeping on the couch. His dogs didn't let me sleep at all. And like, I was ready to give up, like kind of ready to quit and like drive back home and kind of call it off. But it was definitely a huge turning point. And I always remember my mom telling me to just like kind of grind it out. Like you're only going to suffer for so long. And then you're going to be right back up here. So kind of just push through. And like, luckily I was able to get a different living situation. And from there, it helped out so much more. And like, I'm only where I am now because I stuck through that moment. Kind of the same thing happened to me when I moved out to Arizona. I did it in a blink of an eye where I graduated, and I think like 3 to 4 weeks later, I was moving out to Arizona with like everything I have. And I got promised a lot of things from the company, and it didn't really fall through the following year. So like I definitely felt alone in a corner, so to say, and it didn't just work out really well. So I kind of had to like suck it up and then pull through again, like for a little bit longer. And it ended up being a World Series win with the Cubs. So I mean, it paid out a lot. But then after that, I was able to kind of reload and jump back home and really get the door like blown open for the Red Sox. So, I mean, definitely in those little moments where like you think that it's like over, it's kind of like the darkest dark, like it's definitely not. And like you just take a couple more steps and it's bright and everything's better and everything was worth it. It's always going to be better if you just keep working at it and taking that extra step to just make sure you achieve your goals and manifest it into reality.
That's so true. I mean, just you never know when that open door is going to come and completely change your life. So you just got to keep going. It's great advice. So being in the sports industry and, being in the role that you are, I'm sure that you have discovered along the way different careers that maybe you didn't even know existed. That's one of my favorite questions to ask professionals is, what are some careers that you have discovered along your journey that maybe high school students aren't aware of?
Yeah. I mean, I definitely didn't really know a lot about the nutritional field, or at least like what kind of jobs could be offered through nutrition. And from there, I've had countless friends work for Alabama, the football team, and go through their whole program. The same thing with any like Auburn teams, and just pretty much all these D1 schools have these crazy culinary operations that are really starting to jump forward and really have these crazy technology, different ovens that do just insane amount of stuff to actually better the food. There's a bunch of different farming nutritional classes that like you didn't really think about, where there's so much more that goes into gardening than just planting a seed, watering it, and making sure it has sunlight. That there's like 10 times more to it, where it's such a science that like you really need to know your stuff for it. Same thing with like different like medical team wise, like there's a lot of we have a lot of PTs on it, but like like they also do acupuncture, they also do chiropractic. So like it seems like you have to be a jack of trades by knowing just little different areas of a certain medical field or a certain culinary field or law field or whatever it is.
So I love these questions that we have from students. The first one is, do you travel with the team to every practice and every game?
No, so pretty much I've only done just the home stuff. We have done obviously a couple practices and stuff, and I have gone to spring training for a couple different teams, but currently we only do when they're in Fenway.
Okay, that's interesting. The next question is, what is your favorite dish to prepare?
I'm kind of all over the place with it, but definitely anything grilled. I'm a big barbecue guy or like an Italian style cook. So anything I can do with like a grill or make a really nice sauce with it, have some nice pasta and nice vegetables to go with it is always a good meal.
Yeah. So I'm sure preparing food for a group of people on a regular basis, you start to kind of figure out what the likes and dislikes are. Do you have to prepare different dishes for certain players based on their preferences?
Yeah, a lot. But no, I mean, we obviously take into consideration of anybody having a dietary restriction. We have a couple guys that are gluten-free. So we obviously make sure that if we're having pizza, if we're having pasta, if we're doing anything that has gluten, we're doing our best to make sure that we have a gluten-free option. Same thing with a couple vegan players, or at least just vegetarian players. So we do have to have a lot of fish options. We've been doing a lot of hummus plates, a lot of falafel burgers, a lot of little falafel dips and stuff like that. So it's awesome to kind of dwell into that kind of stuff. But yeah, so sometimes you definitely have to accommodate to a lot of guys. And there's also times where they'll come up, see your whole buffet line and then just be like, nah, dude, I don't want that. Like, give me something else. So you got to always be on your toes ready for it.
That's so funny because the very next question was, are some players super picky eaters?
I wouldn't say so much picky. But they definitely like certain things. Like there's a couple guys that will just be like, I don't like mushrooms. And it's just like, why? Are you allergic? Like, do you just not like the flavor? And it's just, I don't like mushrooms. And you're like, all right, like cool. But I've gotten very lucky to not really have any picky eaters.
Yeah. So I love this next question. Do you get to be creative in this career path?
Yeah. So I pretty much, control, I wouldn't say control, I'm sorry. But I create pretty much all of the menu for each homestand. And I've been able to do some really cool stuff where I do theme nights now. So it's like Taco Tuesday, Barbecue Wednesday, Asian Saturdays, or whatever it is. So I kind of just try to stick to this really cool, authentic dishes and stick to the classics, like obviously chicken parm and like meatballs and spaghetti, but then kind of try to get a little wild and do something that they might have not seen.
That sounds like a really fun job. I know so many students out there maybe are creative or they're artistic or they like to think outside the box and maybe they've never considered this career path before. So this might be a new option for some students out there. So the next question we have, and this kind of piggybacks off something you said earlier, but how do you keep up and stay organized with all of the different dietary needs of the players?
It's tough. I mean, a lot of it, you kind of have to remember and be pretty quick about it because let's say one of your starting pitchers wants to just feel better because they pretty much go on like a 5-day cycle of starting to not starting and stuff like that. So you got to figure out what day you should give him more protein to recover from working out so hard. And then vice versa, like what day do you give him a lot of carbohydrates so that he's fueled up for his next start date or something like that. So, I mean, luckily we have a pretty good team to collaborate different ideas and kind of bounce it off of the medical people, also bouncing it off of our strength and conditioning coaches. It's a big network. It's a big community, I guess. So we kind of make those decisions together. But like you kind of also have to remember like, oh, some of these guys will eat the same meal if they hit a home run the night before. So like you have to remember exactly how you made it with the same exact style and played it the same exact way, or like these guys will go nuts. So superstitious all the way to the max, but it's a lot of fun. Like I said, a lot. It keeps you on your toes.
I love that so much. I mean, you always hear about sports superstition, but when it comes down to the way their plate looks, that's awesome.
Very real. I've come to myself making sure that I deliver it the same way. I take the same amount of steps. It all rides on me. If I do something wrong, they're not going to do good that game.
That is probably the best answer that you have given this whole time. I love that. So the last question that I have for you is, this is from a student. She says, I love to cook, but I've never considered it as a career. How do I know if it's the right path for me?
You'll definitely know. It's tough to definitely figure it out young for sure. But I just found that I was really good at it pretty fast, or at least I understood what I was supposed to do pretty fast. And I always remember, I think I just relate back to like, obviously family, and most of the time the biggest family gatherings were always when we had these big meals. So like once I started getting older and once I started getting better at it, I'd always want to make the best dish and bring it there and like have everyone like rave about it. So I kind of like started finding that and finding my confidence, I guess, early on through cooking with everyone commenting on it. And then other than that, it's tough too, because a lot of people I know will get driven away from it because they get into a bad restaurant at a young age, or just something bad happens that shouldn't happen. And it kind of just ruins it for them. So it's tough to get through those restaurants. But once you find a restaurant and you find your like mentor chef, it's one of the funnest things ever, when it's like 300 covers, you're sweating, you got burned, you got cut, and you don't even realize it. And you're like 20 tickets down. And then all of a sudden you just find this like crazy will and crazy power, and you just bang through it. And all of a sudden, like, your food looks amazing. Everyone's happy in the restaurant, and like everyone in the staff is just like tired, but they're like happy about it. So it's like one of the best feelings.
Yes. So I can tell you're super passionate about what you do. And I've so much enjoyed chatting with you today. Is there any last words of wisdom you would like to leave with students?
Yeah, thank you for having me on again. I really appreciate it. No, not really. I mean, I just keep with whatever your dreams you have. It definitely gets better after high school if you're having a rough time right now. College is definitely a great spot to kind of refine yourself and really figure out what you want. If you know what you want to do, definitely push for it. Don't let anybody like talk you out of it. You're going to lose some friends along the way. It sucks, but it happens. And you end up re-talking and reconnecting later on in life. So don't worry about it. Do what's best for you right now, and make sure that you go to the best school you can, get the best grades you can, but also enjoy every moment of it, because it goes by really fast.
Yes, such good advice. Well, thank you, Michael. Thank you so much. For everyone that tuned in, be sure and check back next week. We'll bring you another industry professional, and have a good day. See ya.